Well, hello again, friends. Welcome to Investment Immigration Conversations. I'm your host, principal and founder of Carolyn Lee Pllc, Carolyn Lee, and here to talk to you again about our favorite topic, investment immigration. And today we're talking about the E-2 visa, and in particular, a particular model of the E-2 visa that we have designed ourselves, which we have fashioned the E-2 hybrid visa for reasons which we'll get into in a moment. I was thinking about making a presentation with a little PowerPoint to make sure I hit the highlights. And instead, I'm going for true to the title of our presentation, of our format, our platform, to keep it more conversational. As some of you, or as many of you may know, I and my firm are primarily known in the EB-5 investment immigration space. This is the space that I've practiced in for, I think it's almost 20 years now. I know you're asking, how could that be? You're only 27. Alas, for a while, and have really experienced this tremendous journey that investment immigration visa has traversed in its relatively young history. So I got into EB-5 in probably around 2004, 2005, right before the Great Recession, when it was very much a sleepy, really forgotten program that was birthed in 1990, and the Regional Center program formed in 1992. And for various reasons, it had gone largely dormant after 1998. And I know this is about E2, but EB-5 is a part of the hybrid part of that, of the E2 story, of our E2 story. And so around 2005, 2006, the service began issuing these letters that kind of said, hey, to regional centers, that said, hey, you're a designated regional center. What have you been up to? And it was really this sign that that the agency was kind of opening itself up again for a bit of what turned out to be an EB-5 renaissance. And it was timed really rather perfectly with the Great Recession, because shortly thereafter, or it might have all been around the same time, it very much feels like it was all sort of this vortex of the same time period. Developers in the US started to feel a real crunch for capital. And as I've said before, I have visited project sites where the developers could not progress with the construction because the capital funding had just dried up. And so they were looking for other sources of capital, and were looking for other sources, alternate, unorthodox sources of capital from the traditional debt and equity, and enter EB-5. And really, I think that marks the start of this second chapter of that story that's really kind of underway. And the third part of that story, of course, is the passage of the EB-5 Reform and Integrity Act of 2022. And that has really brought about a third renaissance of the EB-5 visa program, which in this space we're all extremely excited about, and also a little nervous about. We want to, make sure this baby grows up really, really well and strong. And so that's EB-5, and that's the space that I'm more well known in. So what am I doing here talking about E2s? So in 2019, I started my own investment immigration law firm. And as many good friends from that time period asked, we think you're great, we respect you a lot, but really is now a good time in 2019 to be striking out on your own and doing EB-5 or investment immigration. Because at that time, after having experienced this rather explosive growth, it had rapidly gone into the nadir of the program history in 2018, 2019. And my response was, I sort of viewed that all as the gauntlet being thrown. That can't be all there is. There's got to be more to that story. And there's got to be more to the story of US investment immigration and perhaps global investment immigration. And that's sort of the challenge that I set out for myself, is to discover that larger story and to go deeper into the story that I had gotten so familiar with. And it has not been disappointing. It's in the course of that journey that I asked myself, I really didn't know anything about E-2 visas at that time. Perhaps ironically, I was too busy being engulfed in EB-5 on the project side, on the investor side, and was never that curious about it. But now I was. And the more I began to learn about it, I could see that it was operating like your sort of traditional bread and butter non-immigrant visas, like the H or the O, but it was investment immigration. So I had to learn more about it. And in learning more about it, I realized that it was very, very different from EB-5, and that perhaps there was a real opportunity to explore how the E-2 investment immigration visa could work for EB-5 investors, investors like EB-5 investors who couldn't go into EB-5 because of all these reasons, because of the tremendous backlog, because at some point the program lapsed, because the program was, it seemed, in constant short-term lapse. So was there an E-2 alternative for investors who otherwise met the profile of the EB-5 investor? And that's the question I began to explore in great depth, researching, studying this incredible law of E-2 visas. And really, it felt like this beautiful kind of a coming home, because studying the EB-5 visa as long as I did, I knew that its origins, its parent, was the E-2 visa. The EB-5 visa and the whole framework comes out of the existing framework that we already had in the Immigration Nationality Act for E-2 investment visas. And even more beautiful, the E-2 visa itself harkens back to some of the oldest laws in our nation, some of the most treasured laws of friendship, of commerce with our oldest allies and our new. So again, the question, could we make the E-2 visa work as we've opened up EB-5 visas to work for so many families? And in studying the law of E-2, I realized, yes, we can. The law absolutely has room. It permits, it contemplates the E-2 visa to very much work like the EB-5, even though it hadn't been used that way. And that's the hybrid. It's the union of the E-2 visa requirements with what has worked so well for EB-5 investors. And to not hide the ball too much, it's about could high net worth individual investors who may not have an inherent interest in operating a day-to-day concern, which is the way that the E-2 visas had traditionally been used for. It's for entrepreneurs and business operators who want to operate a business in the United States. And as those of us who have started businesses, now me among the ranks, know it's very, very early in the morning. It's very, very late at night every day. But is there a way for this visa to work for somebody who makes the substantial investment without that that other aspect of it, the day-to-day aspect of it? And again, the answer is yes. So let's talk a little bit about the E-2 visa requirements as a recap. And this is, this part's nothing new or novel. It is the requirements as they are. And then maybe we can talk a little bit about our hybrid designs and open the floor up for some questions as well. So the E-2 visa is a non-immigrant visa. It means it's temporary and it's a work visa. And it's premised on an investment by an investor from a country with whom the United States enjoys a treaty. The investment must be substantial, substantiality defined as a proportion of what it takes to make the business running, feasible, operational. There has to be a real and operating E-2 enterprise. The business in the United States can't be just on the shelf, pie in the sky, great in theory. It's got to be running, whatever the business is. And the type of business is not limited, very much like EB-5. It's any commercial concern. The business itself, it can't be marginal. It has to have that economic activity so that it's having a positive effect on the US economy, okay? And the investor has to be in a position to direct and develop this E-2 enterprise. They can't be in a position where they can't develop and direct, let's say, because they hold a minority interest. They have to have at least a 50% interest so that they can be in a position to develop and direct this enterprise. So if you kind of go back to the treaty concept and sort of the idea of comity, it's extended to nationals of the treaty countries so they can operate their business in the United States and create these positive economic impacts in the US as well. So that's, in a nutshell, those are the E-2 requirements. And so taking those requirements, we have built two, the best way to, I sort of think about them as services and products, two different hybrid E-2 visa products. One, as you may have heard us speak many times, in partnership with Pllc Capital. Pllc Capital is a venture capital fund that is mission-driven. It is about making investments into women-led tech startups. Wow, doesn't get that much better than that. And as you may have also heard me speak about many times, serendipitously, this incredible venture capital fund is based in, of all places, Ithaca, New York. And the fund manager, Elisa Miller-Out, of all people, happens to be somebody who's, who I know, who I didn't know I knew. Where our kids went to the same school, but that was sort of rediscovered after the fact. After I found this incredible company, started doing more research about it, discovered that they had a connection with Ithaca, discovered that the fund manager is somebody I might know, and in fact, I do and did. So that's that, and I invite you to check out pllccapital.com just to see the cool stuff that they do. Elisa is an incredible visionary is the best word. She has really seen that, first of all, there is a gap in our capital market to fund these incredible, promising startups that are the products of vision and visionary innovations by women founding these companies and seeing gaps that their technology and their business models can fill. And for Lisa to identify these companies and to see their potential and to help grow that potential by mentoring, by really committing to supporting these women founders and their businesses to succeed. It's really inspirational, quite honestly. So regardless of whether you have any interest in E-2 hybrid visas or not, I invite you to check out Chloe Capital and the incredible work that they're doing with EDC, New York City Economic Development Corporation is a recent partner, Bank of America, philanthropists. They're doing incredible work and going around the nation and proclaiming the good word. So check them out. So one of our E-2 hybrid products is in partnership with Chloe Capital. Another of our incredible E-2 products is in partnership with our long-term client and friends, Birch Capital. And I invite you to check out all of their accomplishments as well on birchcapital.com. And so they're also an incredible and fascinating story. My question was, could we take something that is a bang out winner in EB5? And could we kind of convert that into an E-2 hybrid product? The answer is yes. And so we are taking an EB5 exemplar approved project sponsored by Birch. And we did the same thing. We converted that into an E-2 hybrid product. And what has occasioned this presentation is that win, is getting an E-2 visa for an investor client investing in that E-2 hybrid model, which is based on a real estate development, which is itself doing incredible work. It is taking a project, a part of our country that had been used by a storied industry giant that's been a part of the American story. That company folded and the lights went out in that entire region. And so it stayed until this incredible developer came into it. Again, visionaries seeing the opportunity there and pumping capital into it, redeveloping it, in finding a reuse for that site again, bringing it back to life. And now it's this world-class multimodal logistics facility that has got trains, automobiles, doesn't have planes, but just about everything else. And incredible people. The developers are incredible people. And it's doing fantastic stuff. It's doing fantastic stuff for the regional economy. It's kind of like this bright light, I think, for just American real estate development and industry. And so that just feels phenomenal, right? To do great, to bring this, innovative restructuring of something that, of E-2 visas that works beautifully. I think we issue over 40,000 E-2 visas every year from consulates around the world. This is something that works in immigration generally. And to just bring all of these incredible things together into what we're calling the E-2 hybrid visa, it's a privilege. And so we have to share it. We have to tell folks about it. It is not for everybody. Nothing is, but it is something that anybody who is interested in U.S. investment immigration would want to know something about, because it might be for you. It might be perfect for you. In which case, I invite you to contact us, contact at Carolyn Lee Pllc. Put in the subject line that this is about our E-2 hybrid visas, and we'll absolutely make sure that we hook back into you with more information and further conversation. Would absolutely love it. Cool. All right. So, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say about our E-2 hybrid visas. And I will just keep the line open for just a couple of more minutes, but you all know that you can always not just email us about, just email contact at Carolyn Lee Pllc with any questions that you have. And this presentation will be posted on YouTube as well at some point very soon. Oh, great. Well, I hope that this has been helpful, and dare I say, maybe even a little inspirational. And I wish you all a very good day, and stay tuned for our next investment immigration conversations. Take care.